Okay, I'm going to try to get through all of this in one sitting. I've got a lot here, so I'm going to jump right into it. First thing, you argue that slavery wasn't bad back in the day. It was sort of like indentured servitude, where people at the very bottom of society could kind of have a roof over their head and a meal if they worked their asses off for it, and basically signed over their life. So this is very similar to indentured servitude in the United States when it was first colonized. You had people who would agree to work the land for a set time and a set price because they didn't have anything else, and when they finished up, they would get a piece of the land that they worked, and they'd get to live out the rest of their life on it. This was not glamorous. There were big problems for breaking your contract, and these people were really not free. If they didn't work, they starved to death and died. It was an existence, but it's just a smidgen above slavery. Don't glorify it by saying, oh, I'm sure that these slaves were treated much better than this and that. I doubt that very much, and this is why. Because the awful conditions, punishment for breaking your contracts, a whole bunch of things like that. But my real question is this. This is not in its original language. It's been translated. Why wouldn't we translate it correctly rather than having to have an apologist come back later after the fact and say, no, slavery didn't really mean slavery like you're thinking of. Why not just translate it correctly? I'm curious. Maybe I missed a step in there. Regardless of how good a picture you paint, I would say that it's still slavery, and still even good slavery is slavery. I don't think these people had a choice. Second thing, you argue that this girl, Muhammad's 9-year-old wife, could have said no. She had the option, but she didn't say no. I have to ask you, I mean, this girl is 9 years old. The same 9-year-old now, I would say, is at the same mental and developmental stages as a 9-year-old was in this time period. I would argue from biological maturity and mental maturity that a 9-year-old girl does not understand the implications of a decision like this that's going to affect the rest of her life. 9 years old would put her in the 3rd or 4th grade. Even today, that's basic reading level, almost no math. I think you start to identify your multiplication tables at that point. You cannot understand the implications of a decision that will affect the rest of your life at that point. Don't kid yourself. Oh, where was I here? I also don't think that she had the opportunity to say no. I really don't think it was an option for her. I realize that she's not going to stay 9 years old forever, but a crime committed against a minor today takes place when the crime happens, not when the court date is. It's the same thing, if we're talking about it now, to ancient times. If he committed a crime when she was 9 years old, which would be pedophilia, then she was a minor, and it's pedophilia. The average age of menstruation in girls, which is the first bit of, it's really the turning point of when sexual activity can start, is about 12 years old. The chances that she was sexually active at 9 are very low. Statistically, it's a bad chance. Now, by the same token, yes, I can call your God a pedophile for marrying young girls regardless of the circumstances. In the Dark Ages, it was also real common to marry young girls. It was common pedophilia, alright? It happened a lot. With the high mortality rate and the low average lifespan, the general idea was start young, because a lot of these kids aren't going to make it. Just because it was normal doesn't make it not what it is. It just makes it common what it is, and it's pedophilia. It was just common. I can coin the term and apply it to an old time period or religion, and I can argue for it just the way I did, that this person was not mentally or physically mature enough to make that kind of decision. Now that we live in the here and now that is today, and we have such better, greater things than an old book written in the Bronze Age. Let's leave it behind. It's just a good example of why we don't need religion anymore. My third little tidbit here is you argue that if the Prophet Muhammad did something awful, it would discredit him. The trouble is, you have this outrageous claim right there in your book that says Muhammad ascended into heaven on a winged horse. If you're going to accept that he ascended into heaven on a winged horse, how hard is it to make that next leap that he lies about the age of one of his wives by a few years? You even say at one point that you have hardcore evidence that nothing bad happened. It's in the same book with this whole winged horse bit. You don't have any evidence at all. You have unreliable hearsay testimony. It is not evidence. The best case you have for it is, well, so many people believe it. You don't have any proof. You don't have any evidence. You just claim that you do. So don't make that claim because you can't back it up. On a side note, you will never convince me that Islam is free and has equal rights for men and women. Islam subjugates women. At times, women are treated more like property than human beings, not lesser rights, just different rights, as you argue. You say, well, women had equal rights, they were just different. We had this in America once. It was called separate but equal. You had signs around here that said colored only, white only. Don't fool yourself. These are not equal. You could go to the colored-only drinking fountain, and it was low and rickety, and you could go to the white-only drinking fountain, and it was refrigerated and well-cleaned. You're kidding. You are an intelligent guy. You have to see through this. You even say at one point that a single woman could get really iffy on a trial, so that's why we had to have two. Iffy to me sounds like fear. Fear from a society, fear from not knowing what to say, having a second anything there to help you with your testimony kind of strengthens it. It sounds like fear to me. One woman is afraid. We need two women to do this. Why doesn't a man need another man for that same moral boost if your society makes them equal, but they have a different equal rights but different rights, equal but different? Why would women cover their face but men not? There's a whole lot in the society at this time, and it's another fine example of why we should leave this Bronze Age barbarism behind, because it's crap, and it is not separate but equal. It's separate but deludes people. And I want to talk here just a second about something I heard you say in passing. You said, and this is about your sources, you said, according to Conservapedia. And I really hope you're kidding. You find a better source, and this is why. Now, Conservapedia is just god-awful bad. Here's their definition for liberal. A liberal is someone who rejects logical and biblical standards, often for self-centered reasons. There are no coherent liberal standards. Often a liberal is merely someone who craves attention and who uses many words to say nothing. That's crap if I've ever heard it. But now let me tell you the real reason I'm here. I'm here because you had a false DMCA filed against you. Now, if there was any doubt, you're fine. It's a bad DMCA charge, and she's really stupid for doing it. Also, I could make it all the way through your video, and I rather enjoyed it. It wasn't that bad, despite the things that I pointed out. I was almost sickened by Naomi's video. I puked a little bit, but I don't want to talk about that. The fact that she filed a DMCA against you is just pathetic. We can't have an open exchange of ideas here without turning it into some censorship contest. What's ironic is both sides will villainize this. I'm actually the king alpha loser here, because I made a video to you to tell you that both you and Naomi were wrong. So I guess I earned the king loser award here. That should just about be the end of it. I have to tag on a little bit extra because it tends to cut off the last several seconds of the video response. Anyway, I put a link over there to what I'm referencing with a 9-year-old girl, and that pretty much does it.